Alright, so this is today's video. I bought an entire ton of these things. Well, it's not quite a ton, but it's pretty close. Some of them are pretty big. That one looks pretty heavy. Most of them are normal size though. Looks like we got some Romex in there. But regardless, this thing weighs, with the pallet and the cardboard box, 1,927 or 29 pounds. The pallet and the box weighs 67 pounds. So yeah, it's 1,860, what is it, 62 pounds? I have it written on the board here. Yeah, that 1862. How much compressors are in there? I'm gonna tear them apart and see how much copper I can get out of them. So I had to pay for these things. I didn't get them for free. So I'm hoping I did all my math correct, because profit margin's a lot tighter than I want it to be on this. So yeah, I got the plasma cutter set up here. I got the grinder to get the copper out, and yeah, I'm gonna get going here. It's rainy and windy. Otherwise I'd be tearing a tree down today. But I went up there, I cut one branch and said, no, it's too windy. So yeah, let's see how this goes. All right, so I got everything laid out here. The first step, I think, I'm not doing this one for time. I'm doing this to see if it's worth it to keep doing more of these. So I think the first thing I'm gonna do is just weigh everything. Group everything by types, and then that way I know what I'm looking at. There is a little bit of copper goodies that I was able to get for free. Well, not for free. I paid 35 cents a pound for stuff like this. It's number 2 copper. I don't have to do anything to it except throw it in my number 2 copper bucket. And I got a piece of Romex here. You know, that doesn't weigh hardly anything, but I did have to pay for it. There is some copper on these things as well, and then some other copper tubes on there. I'll cut them off before I weigh the units. Yeah, so I'll probably start with these things first. I don't really like these ones, so I'm gonna get them out of the way. And there's not a whole lot of them, so that's a good place to start. Yeah, I'll probably bring them inside, weigh them all up, write down all the weights, and then I'll have to bring them back up here to cut them. And then steel will go in the trailer, the copper will go in buckets and whatnot. This isn't the most productive setup right now. I'm just mostly trying to get recovery weights on them. And yeah, we'll see where it goes from here. Alright, I didn't film any of the plasma cutting on those units. It was raining too hard. But here's the cooler that I made. I was going to do a time lapse of this, but because of how quick it ran, I'm actually just going to run everything in normal time for this cooler. That way you guys can see how well it actually does work. Alright, so I weighed up, or I cut apart all the sealed units, all the small fridge compressors. Now it's time to weigh back the copper and the aluminum that I got out of it. There were two of them that were aluminum, which I kind of expected to get some aluminum in this load. Hopefully it doesn't weigh, hopefully I don't get too many more aluminum ones, especially them big ones. It kind of sucks getting aluminum big ones. Alright, so what all did I get out of that? Well, I have my copper in a steel bucket like this. I don't know the weights on these, so I'm going to weigh an empty one here. We're coming up at 3 pounds. So whatever the copper weighs is the number on the scale minus 3. So 17.5 minus 3 is 14.5 pounds of copper. I'm going to write that down here real quick. 14.5. And then we got some aluminum. These buckets weigh 2 pounds when they're empty. So we'll see if, well, we might have got a pound of aluminum. Alright, so now I can figure out the percentages of all that. And I guess we'll bring in the other compressors. Here's the rotary scroll. I'm using a different cutting method than I normally do on these ones. I did try to learn some stuff from these dudes in Pakistan. They seem to cut less inches on these ones. So that's what I'm trying to do here, is open them up a little bit differently than I normally do. And I also try that method on the smaller AC unit ones, so they have like the same style construction, I guess. I seem to prefer the Pakistani method on these bigger ones, but the smaller ones, I don't know, my old method seems to work better for me. So yeah, I'll show you a couple of these ones and a couple of the small ones. I'm not going to include all of them because it's a lot of cutting, you know, but yeah. Notice how there's a lot of smoke coming out of these things when I plasma cut, and that's why I wear the papper. I didn't buy the papper just for processing these things around the same time that I had the 2 boxes of these things on my trailer. I had an emergency welding job where I needed the papper, otherwise I probably would have been dead. And that's why I have the papper. It's not just for the field units. This is that big rotary scroll. I cut an access hole in it just to see what it looks like in there. So you can see the stator in there. But, I pretty much just cut around it and then banged out a little piece. There's probably other ways to open this one up, but I just kind of worked with it. Sometimes you find units that you've never come across before, and you gotta figure them out. They're all pretty much the same, but they throw you off just a little bit sometimes. so that was all the rotary scrolls. I got all the copper here. This is all the copper. Well, not all of it. There's another end on there from that big one. I just want to see. That's 6 pounds right there, and that's not even all of it. So hopefully I got a pretty good percentage of copper here. That puller worked freaking awesome, man. So that's 37.5 on the scale. The bucket weighs 2 pounds. And that was 38, hold on. 37 and a half. So that's 35.5. Yeah, 35.5 is what we got out of there in the copper from the rotary scrolls. So that was all the small window AC unit compressors. I got all them tore apart, so now it's time to weigh up the copper. I actually have 2 buckets of copper this time, which I'm hoping that's good. I'm hoping that's a good thing. This is all what came out of the puller, and then this is all what I was cutting off the chop saw. So I'll weigh both of these at the same time here. We're at 61.5 pounds. I'm going to dump these out. So it's 61.5. Now I'll get our tare. And our tare is 5 pounds. So 61.5 minus 5. What is that? 46.5 is the copper that was in those things. Alright, so now I'm down to just these big guys here. So I'm going to start weighing them up. And I got to get my paper ready here. Yeah, I'm going to weigh these things up and see what we got. I'm hoping it comes close to somewhere around 700 pounds. There for a minute I was starting to think I got ripped off and didn't get anywhere close to the 1,800 pounds of these things that I'm supposed to have, but after moving them in here, I think we might be close to 700 pounds. These things are pretty heavy. That one's 65. $71.5. Alright, and now it's time for the big guy here. I don't think it's as bad as that rotary scroll, but we'll see. $97. Alright, so that's all of them. All of them are weighed up. Now it's time to get them out there, get them cut up here. I got the I actually got that whole load processed already. This is the last bit of copper here. This bucket here came out of those big guys. The red bucket, this red bucket here is, I'm going to call this bonus copper. That's all the pipes that people left on the units that did not make it onto the scale. I just cut it off when it was on the trailer. The reason for that is because, you know, you don't want to do your math and have to depend on that money. So, yeah, the copper that came out of the units is 46 pounds with the bucket. So 44 pounds of copper, which is way low. And I forgot, I did have a copper aluminum one in this run. So we'll weigh this up here. So that's roughly 2 pounds. And then bonus copper, minus the bucket, weighs 5 pounds of number 2 copper tubing. So yeah, I'll write this stuff down here. Alright, so that was quite the mess. As you can see, my welding table has quite some oil on it. Yeah, a lot of oil on that. But this is the aftermath. I had some aluminum from before, and then the aluminum now I just threw in that box. This is all the copper. I had about maybe, I don't know, like 3 or 4 pounds from before that I also threw in that bucket. Yeah, I already did a rough sweep around here to get off all the copper. I got a lot of copper dust in here, a lot of copper dust in the bin behind that table. And I got all sorts of mess down there to sweep up. I got a mess on this thing. And actually on the last one, I ended up breaking the weld that holds this piece onto the frame, which isn't a big deal. Eventually I was going to cut those off and bolt that thing on there. It was just a weak little MIG weld. I'll probably run a 7018 on there. I did actually bend some of these things, especially on that one big 133 pound unit. I think it was this one and then one of these ones. They like somehow bent and got all misaligned. So before I ran those rotary scrolls, I had to bang them back into place. You can kind of see on this one, there's a pretty large gap right here. I might have to address that. But overall, this thing did pretty good. I mean, that made it through almost an entire ton of units. I spilled some oil. That's all kind of in the driveway there. And then there's a lot of it. That trailer is all sorts of slimy. It's not a big deal because I mean, the trailer's going to clean itself out. Once I dump this load, I'm going to have some brush and wood chips go in this trailer. So all the oil is going to pretty much clean itself out with that load. I didn't get the pallet out yet. I just kind of worked around it. All my tools are covered in oil. It's like a big slime. And then back here, I mean, I didn't really fill up the trailer. I mean, I could probably get like 7 tons of these things in this trailer after they're cut up. You know, the trailer's only rated for 5, but I don't know. And this is all the garbage. It's in the bottom of this. So, yeah, quite the mess. So I'm gonna get cleaned up, get lunch or something. And then I'll come back out here and clean up. This is all the oil that came out of the small fridges, or the small AC units, and those bigger ones. I emptied that pan. It wasn't full, I just emptied it, but I emptied it after the rotary scrolls. So I did the small fridges first, then I did the rotary scrolls, then I emptied that bucket. So all the oil that's in it now is just from the small fridges, or small window AC units, and those big guys, like those ones that I did last. I did not change any of the tips out on this. As you can see, they're getting pretty wore. But those, when they're wore out, they go in the number 2 copper bucket. I was waiting until I got all the way done with these ones before I put a new tip on it. I'd probably do some more if I really wanted to, but you know, I try to stay productive with that thing. I don't know how many units that was. I'll count it up here. Those tips were not new when I started. They were pretty wore out when I started this mess. So that just shows you how effective the plasma cutter is. This one's the Hypertherm Power Max 30 XP. So far, this has been my favorite plasma cutter that I've used. The 45 XP might be my favorite, but I haven't had a chance to use that thing yet. And then, as you can see, I actually dropped a big COD unit on it like 6 years ago. It cut the torch in half. Me and my dad spliced it back together, electrical taped it, and you know, it's held up fine ever since. This one, the torch isn't very easily removed. I think you gotta pop the whole case apart, and I didn't feel like doing that or spending the money. So a few wire nuts, some solder, and one of them brass plumbing fit-in things, like a double barbed fit-in, some hose clamps. It's held up now for 6 years, so not too bad for, you know, some rigged up repair. I mean, I don't use this thing every day, but I mean, the torch is held up. I've said this before in some of my videos, but you can't do that if you're running like a Lincoln, whatever, a Tomahawk, I think they call it, because they have like some braided cable running up to your torch, whereas Hypertherm, it's like these small little 18, 20 gauge wires and an airline. So it's possible to splice that back together with a Hypertherm I don't know about the thermal dynamics yet. I don't want to find out unless I have to, or unless somebody's going to pay me to find out if we can splice that back together. But yeah. So yeah, I'm going to get cleaned up, man. It's a mess. I'm hungry. I'll do the math here in a bit. Alright, so now after everything's all cleaned up and put away, we can go over the math here. So I've separated everything into, each category. I have the fridge compressors. I added up the weight of each individual compressor. These ones happen to be roughly around, like between 11 to 23 pounds, I think, was our heaviest. Which is what I was expecting. And then, I added all our weights together to get a total weight. The total weight that I have, it might be a little bit inaccurate because of our scale only goes in half-pound increments. So, there's room for errors in this number. If I weighed them all together, that would give us a better total weight, because it could only be a half-pound wrong. But I was trying to get a weight on each individual compressor. I have a more accurate scale, which is actually sitting underneath this notebook in the cardboard box that you see here. So hopefully the next time I do these, I can get more accurate information. So, this could be plus or minus 5 pounds, but I think it's fairly close for what we're dealing with. And the copper that we got out of there is 14.5 pounds. That is actually pretty accurate. That was for the whole run of the fridge compressors. So, that might be a half pound off as well, but it's fairly close. So that gave us 7.75% copper, 0.5% aluminum, because we did have 1 pound of aluminum, because 2 of them were straight aluminum. So if you were getting just over the scale street prices at the yard that I go to, for the copper, you would get 47.42 for the copper. For the steel, as long as I did all my math correct, you would get somewhere around 11.56 if you're getting 155 a gross ton, which is the weight per shred. So the return that we get out of those is 58.98. Again, that's if you're getting shred prices and the copper prices at the yard that I go to. That's what they give out to everybody. In order to make processing scrap worth your time, you need to find a way to make these two prices a lot better. You might have to call different yards. There's all sorts of different things you can do to improve your prices. And full disclosure, these prices are slightly lower than what I will probably get out of them. I'm not going to disclose the prices that I get, but this is what you would get. Just some regular average dude coming in with this material. And moving down here, we had all the window AC units. Again, added all of them up individually to get 477.5 pounds. Again, there's room for inaccuracies there. That could be plus or minus like 12.5 pounds, I think. So the copper we got out of there was 56.5 pounds. This was our best category as far as the return of the copper. We had 11.83% copper in those, which is what I was expecting. I do have a lot of experience cutting sealed units apart, but this is the first time I was actually able to get a full recovery like this with just a random box that I bought. When I was buying them before at the junkyard that I worked at, I could pretty much pick and choose what I wanted to buy. So I'd try to get more of these. When I just show up to some random junkyard, you know, they're going to be like, you know, either take it or leave it, and, you know, this is what we got, you know, take it or leave it. So I just bought some random box this time. I think they were in the process of filling it up, and I happened to buy it right before they put it in their trailer. You know, they probably could have fit about another 500 to 1,000 pounds in that box. But it was pretty full. So luckily, you know, I got it when I did. So anyway, this is the price of the steel. Again, 155 a gross ton. 28.43 for the steel. I think. For some reason, it seems a bit low. But we're going to run with that, because it's not that important. The copper, street prices is $184.75, which would give us a total of $213.18 for this small window AC units. That would be our return. So I'm going to have to do some math here, add all these together. And yeah, here's the big guys that we did last. I don't really know what to call them, so I just wrote big guys here, and I have big ACs on my whiteboard. I had 10 of those. The weight of those was 682.5 pounds. These are a lot heavier than the other compressors. I was actually getting pretty worried because it didn't look like the pile was all that big compared to the rotary scrolls and the window AC units. And I knew I had to get somewhere close to 700 pounds to get the weight of the entire box. And I was looking at it and I was like, dang, like I don't know, like that scale might have not been right or something. So, you know, they were actually a lot heavier than they look. So it got us close to 700 pounds. Again, with the inaccuracies of my scale, we might be pretty close. So the copper, we had 44 pounds, and I had one that was copper aluminum, and that coil weighed about, or the windings weighed about 2 pounds from that one. Again, with the scale that's in this box, I could get a more accurate weight on that, but the scale that I had, we're going to have to run with the 2 pounds. So this was the worst recovery out of all of them, at 6.44% copper and 0.29% aluminum copper. you could separate the aluminum copper and you know, make the copper percentage maybe like a decimal, or not, it would be like, you know, like 6.45%, but it wouldn't be all that much better. So the copper that we got out of that would sell for $143.88, and $43 worth of steel out of those ones. The yeah, so that would give us a total price of $186.88, and then right here is where I just wrote down that I had 5 pounds of bonus copper, we'll call it, that I was able to cut off of all the different units before I put them on my scale. The rotary scroll motors, I had 7 of those for a total of 486.5 pounds. The copper that we got out of those was 35.5 pounds, which gave us 7.3% copper. These ones, I've never seen an aluminum wound one. So, yeah, the steel would have given us $30.50 for a total of $146.59. Again, getting shred prices and regular over-the-scale copper prices. So I'm going to do some math. I'm going to add the total prices together to see what I might be getting from that whole box. Alright, so I added everything together, including our bonus copper, and I believe that with shred prices and just normal street copper prices, that we will be somewhere close to $620.63. I did account for a 2% loss for either oil or steel slag that got blown everywhere and not recovered, or the copper dust that, you know, is going into the Zorba. So yeah, $620.63, I believe, is what that entire box is worth after I cut it up for some random person. Again, you know, as a processor, you have to figure out ways to get more than this. Alright, so there's the whiteboard. Pay no attention to the stuff at the very bottom. Those have nothing to do with the scrap that we're dealing with. But if you want a big organized list that I compiled together of the 4 different types of units, I started our starting weight, then we have our copper weight, our aluminum or aluminum copper weight, and then we have percentage of copper. I figured up the total percentage of copper for the entire box, which our starting weight for that box was 1862. All the copper that we pulled out of there divided by that number gives us a percentage of 8.08% copper. I did not include the aluminum or aluminum copper in there, and I did not include the bonus copper because, like I said, you know, you don't want to rely on people being lazy before they turn their junk in as a business model. That would not be very effective or efficient. So, yeah. Now, I guess it's time to turn all this stuff in and see if I make any money with all this. Alright, so the trailer's empty. The copper bucket's empty. I forget what I had in that. Oh, that was low-grade wire. That's empty. Although that didn't really, there wasn't much of that. The copper buckets, yeah, both copper buckets are empty. The wire bucket's empty. We still have aluminum and copper aluminum. Or no, aluminum and copper aluminum in this one. The yard I went to, their price, they didn't want to give me all that much for these two buckets. Even though there's not that much there, I said I'll hold on to them for now. Because they didn't want to give me the price for the copper aluminum radiators for what's in this bucket. They were just going to give me aluminum prices at 22 cents a pound because they were considering this aluminum wire. So I was like, I'll hold on to it. That's the same with some of these big yards. Sometimes, they have weird rules and whatnot. They do things a bit different. So I was like, I'll hold on to them. I'll either take them to another yard and get paid for them, or I'll just hold on to them. And if I keep doing these sealed units, eventually I'll have enough where I'll have some marketing influence, I guess. Having a couple pounds of this stuff ain't gonna sway somebody to change their mind on what they want to give you. If you have a whole pallet of it, now we're talking, so we'll see what happens with that. Yeah, let's do some math. Alright, so what I have written down here, I'm not going to tell you, everything that got made, and I won't show you the receipt because I had some other things on there. But after adding up everything, the copper and the steel that I took in, this does not include the aluminum buckets that I did not take in. I don't want to say what I paid for these units. It was way more than I wanted to pay. But I guess copper prices also went up. I got back $3.52 for the enamel copper. And the number 2 copper was $3.28. So if you include the number 2 copper in the number gained, because I did have to buy it, so even though I don't want to do math like this all the time, to figure up averages of copper per weight, I did have to buy that copper, so it did gain me money on that box, and I am including it in this number. So I bought 1,862 pounds of material, and when you add up everything that I turned in so far and subtract what I paid for this, you get this number here, which is $68.57. When you divide that by the amount of weight that I purchased, you can see that you get this number, which is 0.0368, and there's some other decimals, but I just kind of rounded it there. So this is our gain per pound that I bought, and as you can see, it is only 3 cents, 3 1/3 cents, or 3 2/3 cents total. Like, that's not per hour, that's total. It's how much we were able to gain by stripping these and selling them as copper and steel. So this is a very competitive market, extremely competitive right now. Like I said, there are ways to improve this, but it is hard. I did get higher than average copper prices. I think I got higher than average prepared prices although 300 pounds of what I had to go in the light iron. So even with that, you know, it's like I barely made anything. When you factor in my expenses, if you watched a couple videos ago when we were opening things up with the plasma cutter, our expenses were about 3 cents per unit. So although, you know, so if we made 3 cents, or if we had to spend 3 cents per unit, there was, you know, at least, I think it was 52 units that I purchased. And, yeah, so you take 3 cents. Let's figure this out here real quick. 0.03 times 5.2. So about $1.56. You would need to subtract off of this number gained here, and you would get a different number gained per pound. But it is extremely competitive. If you were able to do this whole box in an hour, you know, that might be decent money. But let's figure this up here. 6.857 minus, I forget what it was, but it was about $1.57. So we're at $67. Divide that by 5, because that's about how long it took us. So I only made $13.04 per hour. Or 40. Yeah, my bad. Alright, so that's how much I gained per hour over about 5 hours. I do believe that I can improve everything and be able to make more per hour, but it's extremely competitive. I'm going to try to find another place where I can buy units a bit cheaper, because I do believe I overpaid for these units, but a lot of the yards were telling me around the same price, so I don't know. I might try calling some other places in some different areas and see what they say. Yeah, is it worth it? On this box it was. Even though I did not gain much per hour, I did learn a lot of experience and knowledge, and therefore it is worth it.